It is December and I'm planting potatoes today because why not? It's a good time to plant potatoes. I got these potatoes, these Adirondack Blues, which are a nice bluish purple potato. These ones are stuff that we harvested back in July, a pretty early crop here, kind of late July, beginning August. And I saved these in the shed for a seed potato. I was really getting worried that they were going to freeze up totally. We've had a lot of cold already, 20 degrees and below, but they're not frozen one little bit. A few of them were, but for the most part they're doing great. You can see starting to get sprouts on a lot of them. That one's got a couple little baby sprouts on it. So I'm out here planting today. This is winter sowing of potatoes. Early December here. We haven't really had much snow, but there's about 2 inches of ice in the soil. So I can't just use my shovel to dig a hole. I actually tried the rototiller, but it wasn't quite doing it. It's a bit hard on that thing. So I'm using my Matic, my pick, to dig holes to plant these potatoes in the icy dirt here. And I'm a bit winded because I just finished one row. So I'm going to show you the process that I'm doing this, and I'm not concerned at all about these potatoes freezing out in the winter here. We're in the colder end of zone 5 up here. So yeah, these usually work great. I usually plant them sometime between December and March and they'll do fine. I'll show you what I'm doing here. So I just got my holes here, ran a line. I like to keep things straight. I ran myself a line. I dug my holes. Some of these are a little shallow, I guess. For winter sowing, I'm going to plant them a little deeper than normal. Usually I'll plant potatoes between 4, 5, 6 inches deep, around there, maybe closer to 6. I'm going to do more like 9 inches deep here. Yeah, some of these need to get a little deeper. So planting them down a little bit deeper, it helps keep the frost away, which shouldn't be an issue, but sometimes it is, especially here on this side of the garden, closer to the driveway, where the dirt's more compacted down. So I got my holes a foot apart and about 9 inches deep. Potatoes are going in. These ones are already somewhat sprouted, but they don't really need to be because we've got all winter and then into spring to wait before they start really growing. So they got plenty of time to sprout if they're not already starting to. Okay. All right, so plant them a little bit deeper than normal, about a foot apart, and my rows are going to be about 3 feet apart from each other. Now I'm going to put some leaves. I usually use a straw. This time I'm using leaves because leaves are free straw. So just a good bit of leaves down there. And that's going to both break down and feed the microbes, which in turn feed the potatoes, help get them an early start. It's going to add a tiny bit of heat as they break down to the soil, and it's going to act as a bit of an insulation barrier to help keep the frost out. I'm also going to put a little more leaves on top of this all when I'm done. But I can't do that today because it's been pretty breezy and it'll all blow away. Once I put them down and they have a chance to settle, they'll stay there on top of the dirt pretty well. But, sorry, still winded. I've been working hard here. Catch my breath, maybe get a cup of coffee in a bit here. Anyway, so once I get these planted in here and the snow comes, honestly, this dirt won't even be frozen under just 4 inches of snow. The dirt will be loose under the snow. The snow insulates the dirt. The snow is cold, but it insulates the dirt and keeps the below freezing temperatures out from the soil. So really, once we get a good foot or so of snow up here that we should have back around Christmas before the real cold comes, the soil isn't going to freeze anyway. But when we do get frozen soil, it really only freezes about 3 inches down. So by planting them about 6 to 9 inches deep, as the sprouts start to grow up, they still shouldn't really encounter any of the freeze until the soil warms up and they start growing more. So we've got the potatoes in the holes, we got the leaves. I'm just gonna put a little dirt on them, put a little more leaf, Put a little dirt, put a little more leaf until they're filled. Ugh, ice in the dirt still. Fill that up. Now, it is very important that when I go through here, after I'm done, I got to go through here and make sure that they're all filled in level with the top. I don't want these holes, some of them are still indented and kind of shallow. I have to go and fill them back in. If I don't fill them back in, they are much more prone for freezing if we get weather like what we have now. We've had 20-degree nights and no snow to insulate the ground. So that's pretty much ended my kale. A lot of cold and no snow.
Your hands are so dead.
Yes, my hands are a little cold. So the big important part of this winter sowing of potatoes here is that you've got to have a spot with good drainage. If you don't have at least half decent drainage, you're probably going to have most of your potatoes rot and die in the spring with snow melt, if you have any of that, with spring rain. You need good drainage if you're going to be planting early. Here we got really good drainage. Basically all of Michigan's mostly sand for a soil base.
Oh!
And this is a slightly downward slope, so we're doing pretty good here. When I planted down by the bottom of the hill, I had to dig the trench a little bit deeper. I dug extra deep, kind of loose and fluffed the soil, and I mixed in a little straw and leaves. Just kind of mixed it in the dirt down there to help keep it loose and help drainage, to help keep too much water away from the plant roots. So that does help to keep the drainage more improved and reduce the root rot and the tubers from rotting before they even start growing much.
I don't know what that is.
I do not know where Adaya is. She probably went in the house because she was chilly. All right, you think they're covering up good? It's a little tricky when the dirt's got such big chunks in it. Oh boy, look at that ice. That's cold. The big benefit to planting these potatoes here in the winter, well, there's twofold. One is that they're gonna be harvest ready a lot sooner. These things they'll have a decent root base established probably around April, and they'll start growing pretty good from there. I'll be able to harvest these a solid month before I can harvest any of my other potatoes, so that's pretty great. I mean, honestly, to be able to harvest anything a month early, you play with the camera,
No.
is that's a big deal for a gardener. Also, what else am I going to do out here gardening this time of year out in the soil? It's not a whole lot to do at this point, so I can do a little planting here now when there's nothing else going on, and then I get part of it out of the way. I'll do some more planting again probably later on in March or so before things really thaw out again, and those will still be a little early planted and early growing, but not as early as these. So that'll also help me to spread out the harvest. Not only spread out the planting, but spread out the harvest so I don't have a ton of potatoes all at once that I need to dig up. It makes things more manageable and easier.
I had to say something, Daddy.
Go ahead.
And folks, don't burn your leaves.
Don't burn your leaves. Yeah, don't burn your leaves. We don't burn leaves. What do we do with our leaves?
You do it for gardening.
We use them for gardens. That's right. If you burn your leaves, that's silly. You know the trick about working. You start working, you warm up. Alright. I want to keep that one and eat that later maybe. That looks good. Some of these ones that are sprouting better already, maybe. Not that it makes a difference.
Okay, now.
Alright.
Folks, don't burn your leaves. You have to eat before you plant, right,
You
Daddy?
have to what?
Eat.
Yes, you have to eat your dinner before you come out and plant potatoes. That is right.
For anything. And we're out here planting potatoes today
Why do you think we are?
because
Because we want to eat potatoes later. Come on, Esther. I know you can do it. Why don't you kick some of the dirt back in?